Attraction between minds. The ether with which space is filled carries these thought waves in all directions, and the surface of the Earth, particularly in the densely occupied portions, is filled with these waves. These waves, carrying the mental vibrations, coming in contact with each other, tend to set up combinations on one hand, or else neutralize each other on the other hand. That is to say, if two sets of waves of a similar nature meet, there is likely to be a combination formed between them, just as between two chemicals having an affinity for each other. In this way, the mental atmosphere of places, towns, houses, etc., is formed. On the other hand, if currents of opposing vibrations came in contact with each other, there will be manifested a conflict between the two, in which each will lose in proportion to its weakness, and the result will be either a neutralization of both or else a combination having vibrations of an average rate. For instance, if two currents of mental energy meet, one being a thought of love and the other hate, they will neutralize each other if they are equal, or if one is stronger than the other, it will persist but robbed of much of its strength. If it were not for this neutralizing effect, we would be largely at the mercy of stray currents of thought. Nature protects us in this way, and also by rendering us immune to a considerable extent. But nevertheless we are affected by these waves to a considerable extent, unless we have learned to throw them off by knowledge of the laws and an enforcement of them by practice. We all know how great waves of feeling spread over the town, city or country, sweeping people off their balance. Great waves of political enthusiasm, or war spirits, or prejudice for or against certain people, or groups of people, sweep over places and cause men to act in a manner that they will afterward regret when they come to themselves and consider their acts in cold blood. Demagogues will sway them, or magnetic leaders who wish to gain their votes or patronage, and they will be led into acts of mob violence, or similar atrocities, by yielding to these waves of contagious thought. On the other hand, we all know how great waves of religious feeling sweep over a community upon the occasion of some great revival, excitement or fervor. The effect of these thought waves, so far as the power of induction is concerned, of course depends very materially upon the strength of the thought or feeling being manifested in the mind sending them forth. The majority of persons put but little force into the mental manifestations, but here and there is to be found a thinker whose thought waves are practically a stream of living wool, and which of course have a very strong inductive effect upon the minds of others with whom the waves come in contact. But it likewise follows that a number of persons thinking along the same lines will produce a great volume of power by a combination of their thought currents into great streams of mental force. Then again, there is another feature of the case that we must not lose sight of, and that is the attraction between minds, by virtue of which one draws to himself the thought waves of others whose thoughts are in accord with his own. The contrary is true, for there is repulsion between the minds of persons and the thought waves of others whose thoughts are not in accord with his own. The contrary is true, for there is repulsions between the minds of persons and the thought waves of others antagonistic to their thoughts. To quote a well-worn and much-used expression to illustrate this truth, like attracts like, and birds of a feather flock together. There is ever in operation this marvelous law of attraction and repulsion of mental energy, persons allowing their thoughts to run along certain lines, and permitting the feelings to be expressed in certain ways, draw to themselves the thought waves and mental influences of others keyed to the same mental keynote. And likewise they repel the waves and influences of an opposing nature. This is an important fact to remember in one's everyday life. Good attracts good and repels evil. Evil attracts evil and repels good. The predominant mental attitude serves to attract similar influences and to repel the opposing ones. Therefore watch carefully the character and nature of your thoughts, cultivate the desirable ones and repress the undesirable ones. Verily, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.